human design, like the third eye meditation that we were at a few years ago, so many years ago. I mean, what a huge impact it made on my experiment. It really set me into an experiment with like really deep surrender, like a really deep surrender experiment. And emotions, it's really powerful and beautiful. And it's been, of course, so important to me to have you at everything I've tried to plan. And so now this one actually came into fruition, and I'm so grateful it's here in Austin and that we get to actually experience you. And just so grateful that you're here. And I remember when I asked you for your information, I went on your website and I scrolled down and I saw that quote by Ra, that Ra spoke about you. Yeah. And the only thing I remember is it said something about like there's an acoustic quality to, and I was like, that's what I experienced. Like it's transmutative. This when you speak, it mutates and I'm just so grateful to have you here doing this because this is very much a somatic human design. And even though we're having a speaker, it's a very somatic experience to receive you. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited about whatever this is going to be. I'm here for it. And so we're going to do, just checking really fast. Did you start the recording? Okay, fantastic. So we're going to do Q&A, is that right? We're going to start with some questions. So maybe if you want to introduce yourself a little bit and share a little bit about your profile and stuff so people can understand a little more.
Okay, so I met Ra, I met Eckhart Tolle in 2000 and got to work with him, and then simultaneously I met Ra and got to work with him. So I had been in the New Age movement from the 60s on because I was born 2 weeks after Ra in 1948. So it's hard to describe what's happened from 1948 until now, and I'm going to bring up something very random because I happen to be a Sphinx. My birthday's May 4th, so my sun is in gate 2, but it's a second line, and I'm motivated by hope, which is a second color, and my cognition is 2, which is uncertainty, so I'm 2, 2, 2, 2. So when I was going deeper in human design, I was really looking at how it could be actually helpful to people so they don't get lost in the information and feel like they've got to know so much. And I've seen it so competitive with people. When Ra died, it was like, who's going to take over his gauntlet and who's going to be in charge? And then you know right away that the teaching is lost because people, the ego and the need to program and plan where something's going to go versus where it's led or where it unfolds through your decision making. So I got into human design, and I just saw it right away because I'd done so many different modalities. I mean, tons of modalities. And what I found was it was not only logical, but it was true. It was true. And working with Eckhart, he's a non-dualist, similar to Ramana Maharshi and the Indian sages, because in the 60s when the Beatles came and the drugs were there and the birth control pill came, all hell broke loose. All hell broke loose because it was a beginning of the last 60 years of the 400-year cycle that we're talking about changing in 2027. So in early 1960, we moved from the second line to the first line in the cross of planning and the cross of the Maya, because we have the cross of the vessel of love and the cross of the Maya. They work synchronistically in terms of the keys to the locks of the evolution of human consciousness. So when I met Ra, I was very flippant. I was very tough because I had just come out of intense training by top professionals for cult intervention, because I've been a professional doing cult interventions with very difficult situations, and I understood the weakness of the human mind to give their authority over to a person who you think you need to become. And so it was very interesting because I had gone through a very profound experience of being in a cult. And the New Age is cults, believe me, it's cults. And we've got NLP as a cult and roll you and put your money down. So anyway, I had that experience, and when I met Ra, I was kind of like, who the heck is he? Who is he? Because I was not going to idolize him or feel that I had to be a puppy dog following him and giving the authority away. And the beautiful thing about Ra, and you'll hear stories about him, is that it was hard to get close to him, because if you overstood your boundaries or assumed something about him, you get, you know it. So I went into human design very slowly. There was no egoic intention for me to learn it, to be a human design analyst, to teach or anything. I was just doing it because my life was very confusing, and I was living my life mostly as a manifester. And you know, working with Eckhart was very profound, because his vibrational frequency was so high that even his students had lights coming out of their eyes. He truly is an enlightened master, but it's non-dualistic. And when I met Ra, I said, boy, this dude's pretty dark, you know, black, and you know, getting high all the time, and you know, being very sacrilegious. But you need both, and so I was able to work with both. And in a way, they're pointing to the same thing, and the thing that they're pointing to is surrender. Bottom line, they're pointing to surrender, and it's pointing to the courage to not know, but to be present in every moment. And right now, that's what sort of got me into human design, not as a career, because I had a career as a real estate broker. And then what happened, and I've been a yoga teacher for 40 years, so I've been involved in all of this. So when I got into human design, it was able to check the boxes to say, as long as people don't idolize Ra, then, and you can use your own authority, then you will come into the information as you need it. It can be vast information, it can be deep, because human design goes very deep. Or it can be surface, it doesn't matter. You are all designed with incredible wisdom. Now I've done thousands of charts because I've been doing readings for so long, and every time I'm present with a person, I'm just overwhelmed by the beauty of their design. No matter how different it is, there's a core vibrational frequency there that wants to be expressed. But it's really messed up, because right now we're in a time of chaos. And probably one of the most important things that I have embraced is that these are difficult times. And in order to go through difficult times, you really need your way of making decisions. No question. And because I'm a Sphinx, and I fell in love with Nova right away because she's a vessel of love. Mm-hmm. So the vessel of love and the Sphinx are the two major crosses in human design. They're the G center, and they are the frequencies from which every other cross is connected, but they're also the frequencies that create the direction of where life is going, where the background frequency is going. So you will find that when you look in your design, if you notice the crosses are the kind of people that you keep bumping into, keep meeting. And so as a Sphinx, and I'm also Scorpio rising in astrology with the Pisces moon, that I've been very interested in this 2027 thing from the time I heard about it, because this was back in 2000, and we were not in debt. The great taking by the banks was just underway, and the military and the three-letter agencies were just beginning to play their cards, starting with the Patriot Act, which really was against the American people. So what happened is I said, and this is just coming out, what happened is I said, I've got to investigate what happened in 1961, because that's when we moved from the second line to the first line. So if any of you are not familiar, we are in a 400-year period, a cycle, and during a 400-year period, two crosses are the major directional. So we've had the cross of planning, and we've had the cross of the Maya. You know, and the Maya is really about developing, through materialism, expansion of your potential, and also secrets of what this is all about, as well as what are the facts that support it. And so when I met Ra, I looked at his birthday. I thought, 1948. What happened in 1948? He was born April 9th, or April 7th, the World Health Organization was formed. Similar frequencies, very close. The World Health Organization right now, through the UN and through unseen forces, because it's the program, are working slowly to take your authority away, to move you into a dystopian, totalitarian system, but make it very seductive. And I thought that's interesting. The binary always exists. So that's what's going on now. And then we have human design that says, wait, does this feel correct for you or not? So the key here, when Ra was talking about going to 2027, at first he said human design is for children, yes. But then later, before he passed, he would say, oh, your strategy and authority is your armor that you're going to wear as you move through 2027, and it's going to protect you. And then really close before he passed, he said, you're going to die if you don't use it. You know, he got really serious into that. So I said, okay. So that's kind of my background. I tend to see things because of the Sphinx. I'm going to say a couple things now just to be very aware of, because this is an awareness game. Can't hide. Number one, we're being invaded. The border's open from the Darien Gap. We have millions of people coming in that are not educated. We have prisons that have been opened from Venezuela, now from Haiti. They're coming into this country. So you got to be aware. Secondly, I'm a real estate broker. COVID was a transfer of wealth. 2008 was a transfer of wealth. 2001 was a transfer of authority. All of this has been happening, and you're young. All of you are young, and you have a different imprint. Those people born from 89 to 96, you're very different, because you're coming of age during a time when things are falling apart, the structures that we have. But what's really important is to understand you don't have to be affected by it, because through your decision-making process, you have the tools and the perspective to know how to respond, to initiate, to wait for the invitation, whatever, to create a new kind of way of living. So you have to trust that everything you need is within you, and you don't get into the fear porn when you hear about what's happening. But it's really important if your awareness as you look at what's happening. So we're in a very difficult situation right now. So it's almost, you're on a razor's edge with your decision-making authority, because there are too many seductive pulls out there. And one reason I overslept this morning is I was in bed getting all ready to get here early in the morning. And after about a half an hour, I said, I have to get up and watch something's on the television. And I turned it on, and there was Paul Simon. It was Paul Simon was on there. And he was talking about his stories, and then there was a psychologist from Harvard. And now what does that have to do today? It was interesting, Paul Simon was sharing his new album that he's releasing. And he was a seminal, he was a very mutated musician in the 60s. Mm-hmm. I mean, amazing. And then when he did Graceland. But his new album is all, he heard it was through dreams. He had a dream, and this word came Psalms. He said, what the heck is Psalm? What do you mean by Psalms? He had a dream. So he got up and didn't think anything of it. Then he started having more indications of Psalms. And then what happened is, he said, as he moved around, more words came to him. So he was expressing, being open, surrendering to not have to sit down and do something, or have to write a song or whatever. It came to him gradually. And then it's the Psalms, as you know, in biblically, they're songs. Psalms are songs. And so a lot of this new album is all about grace, about songs, about God, about higher wisdom, because this is the time for it to come in. It's kind of like a fulfillment of the 60 years from 1961 moving into 2027. And then it was followed by a Harvard psychologist. And again, I said, okay, let me see what he says. And he said a fact that I never knew. One thing that Ra always said, the truth of who you are is through your decision making. It will reveal the truth of who you are. So this Harvard psychologist comes on, he has a new book, and it's all about habituation, how you become locked in habits. And he said one thing is you can get in the habit of lying. And he said if you tell a lie and you know it, the amygdala in the brain flashes. It's like, this isn't right, this isn't right. But the more you lie over the day, it quiets down, and you fall asleep to the fact that you're really telling a lie. And I love that, because I thought most of us have had amygdala, you could say conditioning, where we've fallen asleep to our truth, And when we want to go use our decision-making authority, we're always somewhere else, and then kind of making the decision through our authority or not. And so the truth of who you are, it's very difficult to be expressed. So one thing I would find during this time, it's very difficult. I don't self-censor, so I'm going to say just about anything that comes through. So some people, there may be times when you have to not say something, but you will always be able to speak your truth if you are making the correct decisions. In the period that we're in now, you have to speak your truth no matter if someone says no or fights you or confronts you. It's a stripping process, because people that don't want to hear what you have to say, they'll say, well, our friendship is bigger than this or that, or they'll say, so long. But you have to be prepared for that. So that's kind of my intro in terms of what's coming.
Beautiful. I love that. I appreciate it. Can you share a little bit about your design? Yeah, I'm curious I haven't actually seen your chart, I don't think. I just know that there's
Okay. I have 2 channels, and it's the 2343, and then I also have the 1333, which is the prodigal. And I love having the prodigal because I'm able to be with anybody and get the secrets. And it's you could say it's the final repository of the human experiential way and the secrets and the life that people have had. And so often people tell stories. Now when I'm a listener, it's like being the main sled dog at the Iditarod. I'm listening to what's happening, and then I'll actually hear a frequency of something that's not quite right. I'll actually feel it. And I'll stop and say, wait, what did you say? Because what I find that the 1156, for those of you who know, it's the channel from the ajna to the throat, it's collective, it's the sensing circuit, but from the throat to the identity center is a 1333, and that's the last channel that's collecting all the secrets. So why did I say that? Because many people have stories, but they never understand their stories. That's why you always repeat it. That's why you repeat it either by telling people this is my story, or you repeat it through the actions. So one of the jobs of a prodigal is to listen very deeply to any story and find out what's really going on here. To know the points that maybe you haven't seen, or the points that you're not ready to see. So each one of us here, is there any reflector here?
No.
Okay. So everyone here, in your channel, there's magic, because there's a certain unique frequency that's going to come out from the expression of that life force through you that you can't predict. So it's something that as a listener, when I'm listening to people, I can listen for hours, because the way that I pick up information is all of a sudden I can reorganize it. Now it's interesting, the 1762, or you'd say the 731, is both throat channels. 731 is, established, proven patterns. It's logical. But 1333 is really abstract, it's messy, and it's random. Okay, so emotions are real random. But the beauty of it is there's logic to it, because it's sort of sorting through, trying to find where the story falls down or where something happens. So that's my life, is listening and then offering, oh, this is what it means. Yeah, this is the connection here. Yeah, this is here. It's kind of like a computer. And all of a sudden there's information put in, and then I get, okay. Now it was interesting because when I met Ra, he said, you're here to explain experience to other people in an acoustic way. And I said, what the heck does that mean? I had no idea. And at the time I had a lot of jobs, and he said, you're gonna have to give it all up. He said, if you are living your design, you're gonna give it all up. I was a contractor renovating homes, I was a real estate agent, I was teaching yoga classes, and I was an astrologer. He said, you're gonna give it all up. It's exactly what happened, but not instantaneously. Over a 20-year period it happened, where all of them went aside, and now I listen to people and give them direction. So that's kind of my design. And that's why I never would have done that before had I not made human design. Because the other jobs are just paying my bills and doing the things, but it also has a deep connection, your design, not only to your truth, it builds your health. So did anyone here get the vaccine?
I did, but I did a lot of work and I don't have any residues in it.
Okay. Okay, so the key thing about the vaccine is this, is the vaccine is one of the steps to either expand your authority or not. Some people got it, some people didn't. It's really a no choice kind of thing. So if you did or didn't get it, it's simply where you're at the time. And most of my friends in human design who are analysts, worked with Rob, all got the vaccines, which I found was very interesting and something that made me realize how we don't have choice. We don't have choice. But what's important to know is a lot of I listen. So I not only listen to people, I listen to podcasts. So one of does anyone have the 1333?
Just 33.
Okay, and the full channel. Okay, so you are?
Jessie?
Jessie, so when you listen to people, do you find that you go into a trance or not, or what?
Mostly, yeah, a trance. Sometimes I get lost, or when I'm speaking, it feels like I'll just be channeling and I won't remember what I'm saying.
And what channel do you have?
Channel of awareness, synthesis, and methodical.
Okay,
6124, 1333, and 4919.
are you triple split? Okay, okay. So which is the dominant for you?
The what?
Is it 6124 the dominant channel for you? The pressure to think and know?
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you're listening to someone, this is just an interesting thing because you can see that a lot of people can have a channel, but it's going to be accompanied by other channels, so it's going to make it a little bit different. And if it's not in your incarnation cross, then it's going to be different again. So this is how unique, the different qualities can be. But the 1333 is a frequency that draws people to you. In other words, you're going to be around and people are just going to start talking, and then you're going to have to decide, do you know what line your 13 is in?
It's the third.
Third line?
Yeah. I think it's
1333.
Is it the third line?
I also know that.
Oh, fourth.
Fourth line. Okay, so you're designed to be fatigued by people.
Yes.
So you get really tired. So you have to be very discerning of who you are with, because you're going to be very sensitive and anticipating the needs of other people with a 1949. But that here's an example. A listener, but someone who can be exhausted by people. I mean, it's kind of funny. But it simply means you have to be very discerning. And any projector, you have to be discerning, because your success is determined by who you know. Period. You can be the best consultant, the best this, but if you're in a vacuum and you're not with the right people, the movement's not going to happen. Do you know what line your 13 is in?
It's the same fourth.
4. Okay, so
We're
you.
twins.
Oh, okay. So, one has a hat on and one doesn't. Okay. That's the difference in disguise. Okay, so you're both, are you fatigued by each other when you listen? No, okay. Okay, so that's a good place. So basically what I do is when I am with people, I'll talk and then I'll ask them questions that come up like, you're a triple split, then you're going to be a triple split. The weakness is 13, even though people are attracted to you, and you're going to be fatigued by that. So you'd rather go back in your own kingdom, thinking what's important, what's new. And so that's what's interesting about your 3 channels. They're collective, tribal, and individual. So it's very different. It's not bad. It's just it's something that is to be explored. And I want to say something else. This is why it's so important to understand the body wisdom. Because right now, does everybody know what a RADCOM is?
A what?
A RADCOM. Okay. It's the military arm, psychological arm. It's advanced research projects by the military. And their big project is mind control and censorship. Okay? So what they're trying to do is to get you to have 2 seconds of attention span and take things at an unconscious level, and all of a sudden you're doing it. That's the homogenization that Rob would speak about. So the key thing is they're flattening you out, because there's one thing that is known. let's go back to the amygdala. If someone hears a lie, you're gonna say, this isn't right. Your body will say whatever. But if it's repeated 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, you will begin, this is the truth, you will now begin to feel that that's true. That's how Hitler worked. So if you're taking it with the mind, you're going to begin to say, yeah, this is it. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, climate change. Yeah, we're in a real problem here. Oh, carbon tax. Yeah, I can see the importance of it. If you were to follow your body, it's something very different because psychological resiliency, your mind is not the enemy, but it has to remain resilient to be curious, to, you could almost say, have the curiosity to experience, is this true or not? Is this my experience? Is my experience or not? And then out of that, your uniqueness comes. So you've got your psychological resiliency, and then we've got, I'm going to experience it for myself and creatively do it through my strategy and authority, meaning you don't know what's going to happen. The intention is there. And then what happens is slowly your uniqueness begins to express it back to who you are. And that uniqueness is very important because what that does is that separates you from the control of outside forces. And then you have the ability to truly think your own, let's say your own thoughts that are pre-programmed anyway, but you have an ability to put a wedge between what you're taught to think and do and what you're not. And the last thing I'll say is, Ra also speaks about the uniqueness is not something easy because we are designed, another thing, a paradox, we're herd animals. We need people. We can't be by ourselves. So part of social control is to isolate people. Oh my God, you're going to spread the virus. Okay. You know the virus has never been located. And as an aside, my father was a research chemist and patent attorney, worked in biological warfare. So when this came out, I kind of knew what was going on. So, and I'm just using that as an example. That failed, and now we've got climate change coming in. But all of these are to isolate each and every one of you from the totality. So an outside authority controls. You can see that in real estate, 1-bedroom apartments, the whole thing. So it shows to me more and more how important it is human design is to bring people who can make it through the change. Because the mind control is getting so sophisticated, whether it's through the messaging or X or Facebook groups. You know, there are a number of Facebook groups out there that don't even tap into passenger consciousness. What is passenger consciousness? It's having the awareness that you can attune your awareness to being the passenger, not the driver. As a projector, you attune to your awareness. Okay, maybe I can't drive this, maybe I can't initiate, maybe I can't do this, it has to be all invitation, but I need to pay my bill. Okay, just the awareness that allows you to observe your thoughts, your issues, the decisions that you're making is so important without judgment. Because each one of us is always going to get traps. I mean, this is a minefield out there now. And you can go through without resistance, or you can go through as the victim. But it's, again, it's the razor's edge. And I love the metaphor of the razor's edge. Somerset Maugham, who read The Razor's Edge, written by Somerset Maugham? Mm-hmm. Okay, that was a seminal book in the 60s. In the 60s, The Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Autobiography of a Yogi, The Razor's Edge. Somerset Maugham was an English writer who went to India to meet the Maharishis. And he met Ramana Maharshi, who was the highest frequency, and he wrote a book. And this is a question that comes up, and even in most circles. If I'm really desiring for enlightenment and awakening, do I always have to push for it, or will it happen to me? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a balance of both, you know. And this is where I found human design was so helpful, because it gives you the balance point, and that's your strategy. Do I wait? Every single type, the strategy is to wait. And then from the waiting gives you the gap between habitual patterns and the opportunity, the awareness coming through, and actually trusting your decision-making authority. Because It's a very, very different kind of thing. And anyone who's not emotional, not on the wave, it's very important that when you have to make a real a decision, you're aware of the emotional field that you're in. Because if you're open in solar plexus, because that's undergoing, that's what we're going through now, is a transformation of that, you will be delayed in your decision-making process by the aura around you, and it may be appropriate, it may not. But the awareness is something that is tricky, because you are on the razor's edge. Are you going to follow your authority? Are you going to slip into your conditioning because it's more comfortable, and because you've got bills you've got to pay, and you're in a relationship that you don't want to hurt the other person's feelings, but you want to play along with them. So Ra would speak about, toward the end, there was an acceleration of his teachings toward the end, and I was in the class 3 days before he passed. And he said, I've taught people all about strategy and authority, and I don't think they get it. I don't think they get that this is a game of passenger consciousness, and you just have to surrender. You don't have to think about it. And at the end, he was getting very angry. So, because I think the anger as a good manifester was, he'd say, it's so simple, it's so simple. Don't make it complicated. And the mind wants to complicate it. So in my life, I keep it simple, and I've looked on different ways to stop the momentum of your mind stream. And the best tool I found, whether you're on the wave or not, is simple breathing techniques. Whether they're yoga breathing techniques, but inhale, count, or exhale. And the breathing is something that can really help you wait to feel the frequency of the pattern that you're in and what your next action is. And in Vedic astrology, we speak about the samsaras. Those are cycles that you repeat, and you repeat, and you repeat. In human design, it says, okay, let's shatter the cycle. And you did not choose your parents. That's human design. You can go to a therapist and say, oh, you chose your parents. Not in human design. It's a formula. And when I asked Rob about reincarnation and all that, he said, I don't want to focus on that. So that's the 2343.
I love it. I knew that you were a self-projected projector. I didn't know you had the 4323. And
Yeah.
so when you shared that, I was like, that's it.
That's it.
I
Yeah,
get it. I feel it.
because even when some people will speak, I'll say they don't have the 2343. They got the 1156.
I have the 1156.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just
Very
so
different.
different. Yeah, I have a hanging 43, and so I
okay.
love the 4323. Like I love when people. I'm like I always say like compromise me, freak me, be freaky.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
Yeah. So it makes sense why
Yeah.
I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to open up for questions. Yeah, if anybody has any questions that they would like to bring up and see what comes out of this.
Yes. What breath techniques were you talking?
Real simple. I mean, there are different breath techniques, Ujjayi, Kapalabhati, all sorts of sophisticated breathing techniques. I think Stanislav Grof started the holotropic breathing and their breath retreats, but the best one is just inhale deeply 4 counts and exhale. And you'll find that as you begin this pattern, at some point you'll say, no, I want to go unconscious, I don't want to breathe. Your mind will come in and your thought will take you somewhere and you realize you're holding your breath. And the reason I like that breath, because it's so simple, you can do that wherever you are. Now there's one breath where you do rounds where you're not going to say, oh, I'm getting upset. You're talking in person. You can't do that. But you can get the same effect, particularly if you're either on the wave or not. It works for both. It calms the nervous system in your body. Because the breath, what it's designed to do is to bring the sense of presence in the present moment. Because the mind is always going to take you out into the future or in the past. It's designed that way. But when you're very present, there's something strange that happens when you're focusing on your breath. The thoughts can't come in.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had a question I heard once about the 2838 channel. It's my only channel.
Yeah.
I
So, for the not self, the sixth line, blaze of glory, is really a disaster. To be awake, it really is about the razor's edge. It's like you will not capitulate, you're going to win no matter what. But what are you winning? You're winning over the fear of death. You're winning over the fear that life has no purpose. And you could say the only way that you can win over death is to be in the light, to realize the eternal nature of who you are. So the 2838 is unusual in its ability to be tenacious. It's under pressure as the fighter, and the fighter can maintain their personal integrity when people oppose them. And the fighter, if you look at those lines, you know, it's all about qualification, politeness, alliance, and then it can go into misunderstanding and the ability to fight alone. So there's a developmental, depending on which line, how you're going to fight. But the ultimate goal is to win the game of life, because the 28 is the game player. You know, it's the transitory nature of power and influence. But what is eternal? What doesn't? What's not transitory? It's the truth of who you are. It's beyond, you know, you could say it's the quantum. And each of us are, an individuation in unique expression of the totality. We're not the totality, but we can feel the frequency of being part of that totality when we live our design. And see, the 2838 can be really obnoxious. I mean, when I say that, because you struggle, and people who don't have that can be very uncomfortable, because remember, it's mutative, it's decisive, it's indecisive, it's acoustic, but it is tenacious in saying, wait, you've got to share that with someone, you've got to do this. So the manifesting generators, particularly the 3420s, need that guidance to say, wait, do this, because they've got this brute energy. And so it is enlightenment, because I'll tell you, if you've ever been around a 28 line 6 and a 28 line 6 going like this, it's neither one's going to give in the not self. So you're looking for the light, you're looking for the ultimate purpose, the realization of that purpose in your life. And until you get there, you're not going to stop. Whether it's brushing your teeth, whether it's, organizing something, it's always saying, what's underneath here? What can we do this? Do you notice that, having that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the tenacious part and feeling like, I've certainly struggled with deep suicidal depression. And, there's always this part of me that was like, I just have to fucking get through this. I just have to keep surviving through this, And that tenacity, like it's just knowing that it's the other side if I just hold on.
What line is your 28?
It's a fully second line channel.
Oh, so you call the struggle.
And what
You're
called
called,
it to struggle.
you're called to the struggle. So you can be very polite as a fighter. You can be very polite, because that the second line is politeness. And you can be with all different kinds of people, because remember the second line is shaking hands with the devil. So that's a manner of perception. People would think Ra was a devil. I mean, information came from the earth, he was turned into a reptile. David Icke would say, and Ra's material was the gray material, and there's a whole mythology from other prophets about the grays. So the 2838 is difficult because you're marked as having the heroine's journey. So mythology is very important. Demeter and Persephone, that myth is very important. Odysseus, very important. Any writings by Joseph Campbell. Yeah, because that makes you feel not alone, because if you have one individual channel, you're not designed to necessarily share with people, you empower through who your presence. And you're going to be very sensitive to this destructive nature of other people. And so you would amplify the energies around you, so it would be very easy to feel suicidal if the wrong person were in your life. But you do put out a frequency of struggle, and sometimes people could say, yeah, I'll make it easier for you. Here, do this. You're like, please, no, I want to go through the struggle. Yeah. Did that help?
Yeah.
razor's edge. Because as you said, suicidal thoughts, that razor can cut. But if not, you're just moving on. Yes.
I'm curious, you don't have a solar plexus defined, and you shared that you were in a world of very defined emotional people. How, when you came to the awareness of human design, so my thing is that sometimes I'll go into, not fuel rage, but I'll feel other people's like very strong emotions, and I'll have it feel through me, and sometimes I can breathe it out, but sometimes I can't. And I heard you say you loved it, like you know how to move in that world. So what was that experience for you, and how do you, because I love like your presence, your equanimity, and your very soothing voice, like I can feel that beautiful frequency, and I'm wondering, how do you manage in that other world that you were exposed?
It hasn't been easy. And because my body, and anyone who has an open solar plexus, this is important, your body is affected by an electromagnetic frequency in the room. And it can really switch your energy, because you're going to be, your sympathetic nervous system is now activated, so it's fight or flight. So you don't know if you're feeling danger or if you're feeling the need to stay and observe. So this is where, over time, I learned to keep my mouth shut. Okay. And I just, what I learned is first I had to learn that all my friends were on the wave, because I was conditioned as a child with that. And then the second thing I learned is I really enjoyed the wave. And the third thing is I really wasn't truthful with people on the wave. That was the third thing. So the big thing for people that are on the wave, you're going to feel, oh, they're in a down mood, they're in an up mood, but you're going to have caution. Don't say what you want to say now, because it's not going to be received in the way that you want. So I would breathe, and I would say, is this the time where I really have to speak? Well, if they haven't invited me, I'm keeping my mouth shut. Whereas before, there would be the energy coming in my body, I would amplify it, and I don't know, as a projector, exactly how to hit target. You know, exactly. And then my son would say things to me, Mom, you say the meanest things in the nicest way. And so what I learned was to just be quiet. Yeah, be quiet and be an observer, but understand how it's affecting your body. The second thing I learned with emotions is everything's wonderful at the time, but check in how everybody is the next day. Any agreements or promises made with emotional people, it's great in the moment. Say, get in with me at the end of the week. Are we still going to do this? Because if you're not on the wave, you're going to feel that, oh, you made a decision, we're going to go ahead and do this, great. And then the next day, the person is somewhere else, and they have a right to be somewhere else. And that's how I've learned to really surrender to the flow of the emotions, but be very self-aware. So if I need to leave, so with my son and his wife, they're both on the wave. And I remember we were driving in the car once, and I was in the back seat with their little kids, and his wife said, "Stop the argument. Your mother's in the car, and remember, she's a projector." So they stopped the argument. So you can tell people, you know, it doesn't work for me. But then it's telling the truth.
Which I'm panicked, but yes.
And so you've been in your experiment for 3 years now?
No, 5
years?
6.
And so is it easier for you?
It is easier, but for when I go into my family, it's when it gets harder.
Mm-hmm.
When it's like my nuclear family, my mom, my dad, my sister. Yeah.
No, it will be. So there are relationships that you'll cut off because the wave can be very problematic with unstable people. And your body will start shaking. Literally, if you're a projector and you're an unstable emotional being, your body will start to shake because you're picking up the frequency.
Just by you saying this, I'm starting to cry, and I don't even know what.
No, but it's true. And so oftentimes, you know, if you have a hot diet, you know, have something warm liquid if you know you're going to be around someone like that. You know, look at your PHS, you know, whatever is needed, because that's how you take in food, it's also how you take in life. And so that's what I would say, it takes a while, and emotions, I love emotions, but at the same time, the other thing is, you have to separate yourself from the emotional field and rest, because you have to empty the nervous system out of that energy and that fluctuation. And you have to respect that if you're in a relationship, or you're collaborating in business, or your children, or your partner, or your new love, if they're on the wave and you're not, they control the decision-making of the joint relationship. So you have to surrender to that too.
Thank you.
I would like to hear more about 2027, and
Yeah.
then, that's
Yeah.
exciting to me.
I want to inform a little bit here is that we do have a lot of people that are brand new to human design, so
Okay.
if you want to like give some foundationing in
Yeah.
there, so that people understand what we're talking about.
Whether you're in Vedic practices, because Vedic astrology goes into what they call yugas, cycles, we go in cycles. Now, from a mechanical point of view, the earth goes around, orbits the sun. But the earth is on a tilt and it wobbles, okay? So when it starts this journey, it's pointing to the pole star, but it's tipped. So it takes about 2,160 years for that axis to make a complete circle. And that's what we call a cycle. Now that cycle is broken up into 400-year segments according to human design. And those 400-year segments have a purpose in terms of supporting, by being the background frequency, or you could say the color of the water, in terms of bringing human consciousness out. And so we're in a 400-year cycle that's ending in 2027. So at the end of any cycle, there's going to be chaos, always, because the normal support structures that are in place are taken out, and new ones are put in. But in the chaos, you're being initiated through shock into a very different reality, and you can't put your head in the sand. A lot of people put their head in the sand. Maybe they're just not aware, but some people literally are not designed to see what's going on. So in 1961, we moved, and there's 6 lines in a hexagram, each one is a frequency. So in 1615, we moved into the cross of planning as the vessel of love, and you have a cross of planning vessel right here, right?
Actually, the cross of consciousness.
Cross of consciousness. And so the underlying frequency was always the family. And the example was, you go to work, you fulfill your obligations within the family, and then you concentrate, put your skills to create a collective organization. That was the part of the totality. And the other part was the Sphinx Gate, the 4 Sphinx Gates, the 2 gates. So the Sphinx Gate is dealing with 42, gate 42, and that's all about developing. So 400 years was designed from the beginning to the most materialistically developed time in human civilization that we know of. Gate 42 is all about development as a structured progression, steadfast, it endures over time, so you make sure that when you enter a cycle that you're able to complete it. So in this 400-year cycle, starting with 1615, and then we had the Mayflower, and we had the whole Western world discovered, and the royalties and all that, the foundation was expansion, but also closing, because 42 is the midwife, closing. So we would expand this time. Also, one of the gates of the cross of the Maya that's operating now, we were to go into a very materialistic age, extremely materialistic, where you could not fail. In fact, most people in here at some time in your life, you'll say, oh my God, I'm going to fail. How am I going to make the money? I can't keep up with this. I'm a total failure. I can't be this person. I can't drive this car, because it's a value in the culture. The gate 32 is all about the only thing that endures is change. And this has been, whoa, rapid change. And then in the 70s, Toffler wrote Future Shock that said, we're going to collide with the future. we're colliding right now. It's creating like tectonic plates. You can feel it every day you wake up, before you go to bed. The tectonic plates of two cycles changing. This is more electromagnetic shifting. So we also have two other gates that are operating in the Sphinx, which is the plan that we're going. So in 1615, the other thing was inner truth. It was about inner truth. There was something about inner truth that had to come out, the spiritual world, occult knowledge, but also the facts. Gate 62 is all about an intellectual organization of the Maya, building words, let's call it this way. And you've noticed how whoever controls words controls your mind. So you've always got to look up how are they using the word. For example, illegal aliens are now newcomers. Okay? Changing the words. So you're going to watch how words have changed, because I've watched it in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So we look at each of the 400 years are divided into 66-year cycles. So it's a sixth line, the fifth line, because the equinoxes, they go reverse. So again, human design is based on Western astrology, but the equinoxes, the movement of the clock, is based on Vedic astrology. So it's very important to know that, because some people say, you can't use Western astrology for your design, we have to use Eastern astrology. And Ra was very clear that the voice used the position in Western astrology, of the planets in Western astrology. So we go back at 65432. Now I was born into the second line. Back in 48, the second line was going, it was a call to begin to accelerate the first line. So the first line is investigation, detailed investigation, research, becoming the authority. So how many authorities and experts do we have now at the end of the year? I mean, so in 48 all the way to 61. So I was a sophomore. I could feel the change, because in 1960, it was interesting, Time magazine came out and it said, New York is no longer the Empire State, it's California. Now this was huge, because California is a bellwether of changes for the rest of the country. So in 1960, or the 50s, if you got a divorce, it was like as though you were unvaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
You were shunned. And up until 1960 in Texas, a woman could not own property. Okay? So we're evolving over time, but in 1960, this was kind of the final fireworks, and we're in the last 4 years of the fireworks. I mean, now we're like in the finale. So what happened in 1961? Divorce began to be heard about, and more people going to California. There was less of the Anglo Magna Carta way of doing things, very traditional on the East Coast, moved to the West Coast where things could happen. But in 63, the big thing happened was Kennedy's assassination. That was huge, because that was a CIA operation. George Bush, the oil people, it was not Lee Harvey Oswald. And people in Texas know that. That's a whole other thing, because that was to usher in the final stage of the degradation of the US and the global, getting ready for the next program. So when he, literally, if you ask anybody alive at that time, November 22nd, 1963, it changed the frequency. You could feel it. It was as though something changed. There was a chill in the air. And right after that, the Vietnam War started coming. Now, I lost 5 of my high school friends in the Vietnam War because the draft came, but the draft came with drugs and the birth control pill. So this was totally chaos in the 60s, but this was the first line. So people are saying, what is the inner truth here? What are we going to find here? What are the facts? How do we need to change our language so we can really close this cycle down? So the 70s, we went off the gold standard. And then the 80s, we got into the debt economy. Oh my gosh.